You will be paid approximately 15 crore taka per year to guard this lighthouse. Feeling tempted to get the job? There are countless other benefits too. For instance, there will be no boss. You will be completely alone, able to sleep as much as you want, go fishing, and do whatever your heart desires. Your only task will be to ensure that the lighthouse beam is burning correctly. If it ever goes out, you just turn it back on. That's it. You won't have to do anything else. You can spend the whole day relaxing with your feet up. But the interesting part is, despite all these facilities, this is considered one of the most dangerous jobs in the world. This is because these lighthouses are established right in the middle of the ocean. While staying here, you won't be able to communicate with anyone. Loneliness will surround you at all times. Even more terrifying is that massive storms often occur here. The fury of those storms is so intense that sometimes seawater surges right over the tower. In fact, this job can even lead to death. You will find out shortly what other great dangers lie in wait here. Now, seeing all this, a question might come to your mind. Why was this lighthouse built in the middle of the sea? What is its purpose? And why must the lighthouse be constantly monitored? Why can't its light ever be turned off? To know the ins and outs of this mysterious lighthouse, we must travel several years back. Back then, there were no cars for transportation, nor any other vehicles or airways. Therefore, the only way to cover long distances was by water. At that time, there was an extraordinary sailor named Captain Marius. He was quite famous for being able to navigate the sea even in very adverse conditions. Once he was crossing a pitch-black area in the middle of the ocean. Right then, the ship collided with some rocks hidden under the water. In those days, ships were made of wood, which made it easy for cracks to form in the hull, causing the ship to suffer significant damage as water rushed in. After this accident, Captain Marius began looking for a solution. He wanted to create something that could warn sailors in advance to save them from such problems. However, the vastness of the Pacific Ocean became a cause for great concern. The Pacific is so large and immense that even if all the land of the 7 continents were combined, the area of the Pacific Ocean would still be greater. Thousands of years ago, when sailors traveled across this vast sea, they had no idea about anything beneath the surface. They didn't even have an idea about the path ahead of them. At that time, there was no technology for navigation that could help them find their way. Essentially, sailors had to rely on the sun or the moon and stars to navigate the sea. And due to these directional problems, additional troubles would often crop up, just as it happened with Captain Ellis. Once, Captain Ellis was crossing the Pacific with his crew. Suddenly, one night, a storm began, and the entire sky was covered in dark clouds. All the stars were hidden under the clouds, causing them to lose their way in the fierce storm. When morning came, they realized they were lost in the middle of the vast ocean. They had nothing left to eat, no water, no food. The sailors were in terrible condition from hunger and thirst. Even though they were surrounded by the vast waters of the sea, they were desperate for a drop of water. Many sailors even died. After much hardship, the captain finally sighted land. This was essentially the beginning of building lighthouses. Near Egypt's Mediterranean coast was Alexandria. At that time, the ruler there was Ptolemy II Philadelphus. But the biggest problem for this kingdom was its location. If you look closely at this picture, you will understand that this was the only way to enter the city, and there were many large rocks around this area. As a result, when merchant ships came to trade, they would easily collide with these rocks while passing through this route. Consequently, these ships would sometimes sink or face major damage. Due to the decrease in commercial ships, Ptolemy's kingdom began to fall behind economically. To protect his kingdom, Ptolemy turned to the most famous architect of the time, Sostratus of Cnidus. He pleaded with him for a solution to this problem. Together, they came up with an idea. They would build a fortress over the water where a beam of light would guide the ships at sea, At the same time, it would warn them in advance about the underwater rocks. According to that plan, Sostratus began his work. But even then, he hadn't imagined that what he was about to create would one day become one of the greatest creations in the world, known globally as the Lighthouse of Alexandria. The height of that Lighthouse of Alexandria was 384 feet. It was built entirely of white marble. A fire would burn constantly at the top of this lighthouse, requiring a continuous supply of oil and wood. Later, this lighthouse was even recognized as one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. It wasn't famous just for its hype, it had an extraordinary design. Sostratus designed a system using mirrors and lenses to spread the intensity of the light so that the lighthouse beam could show the way to sailors far away. When the news of this lighthouse construction spread, sailors breathed a sigh of relief because they would no longer lose their way or have their ships broken on the way to Alexandria. In this way, the idea of lighthouses began to spread across the world. Although initially these were built only for the safe passage of ships, as the number of merchant ships increased, lighthouses began to be built in places where rocks were near the surface or where many rocks posed a threat. Initially, fires were always lit in lighthouses, but that wasn't a very good idea because it required a constant supply of coal or firewood, but there was no other way at that time. Later, candles or lamps were also used, but the light from the fire couldn't reach very far. Then, the scientists of that time discovered that if the lens was placed in front, the light could reach much further. But those lenses had problems too, because they were very thick. Right then, a French scientist named Fresnel invented a special kind of lens. All the light passing through his special lens would converge directly into a single point, allowing the light to be sent easily to a specific point far away. Nowadays, Fresnel's lens is used in almost all lighthouses. This discovery gave lighthouses a new form, which is why ships can still navigate safely across the sea. Has your heart started racing after hearing about these terrifying aspects of the lighthouse? Yes, and that's why, despite being offered such a high salary, no normal person wants to stay in these desolate lighthouses, because no one ever wants to lose themselves in such terror and isolation.